Any giggling? Not so much. All right, I'll take it.
No, keep it going. Keep it
I'll
going,
take
guys.
any love I can get. I'm that needy.
The official introduction. I'm Josh Horowitz, but more importantly, this man directed, co-wrote, produced, gaffed. He did everything. He made the movie all by himself.
Yes,
Chris Pine,
financed
everybody.
it, partly.
So, Chris, this is an audience of discerning New Yorkers who have enjoyed your movie. Congratulations. How many sleepless nights have you thought about nights like this, of finally showing a movie to an audience and receiving whatever they had to give you?
It's brutal. I'll be honest with you. It's been way harder than I ever imagined. I mean, I came into making the film, and I had no desire to make some strange film that was going to be some sort of niche film. I was thinking in my mind I was making a very commercial film, and then I had this inkling after I finished that I had set myself up for potentially a hard road. And that has been a journey of about a year and 3 or 4 months or whatever. There's nothing, more vulnerable, I think I told you guys before, than doing it, because there's nothing you can hide behind, you know? And especially when it comes from a place of kind of earnest, there's like not a bad bone in the film's body. It's really not trying to do anything other than delight. And it's like, if it's not met, that cognitive dissonance is something that I really had to get cool with. But what I will say is that I watch the film, and every time I like it. Every time I go away saying that is the film I wanted to make, so I have to stand by that.
How much of the creation of this was about getting to play this guy, which seems to be just like such a joyful experience, which I almost feel like you're still having trouble letting go?
Yeah, you know, it was, yeah, like, you know, that, I feel sometimes like I made the film for about 20 people, and they're all my friends. And that they know me as that guy, or more like this guy than the guy that's in Star Trek and all the things where I look serious and try to give the camera my best angle. So for me, it's not that big of a leap, and I think for some people, they're like, who's this clown trying to show us that he can do all these different things? And there was really, honestly, no attempt other than just to delight myself and the people around me. And I like the archetype of the innocent. You know, it's something we've seen in cinema history from Buster Keaton all the way through Chauncey Gardner, which was a left a big impression on me, obviously, as I said. And I like the innocent in a jaded world and how he can affect things. And I thought that maybe life on planet Earth could do with a bit of pure-heartedness in a time of not so much of that.
Can you take me into writing this movie? Your co-writer's here with you. You're in the room. You guys are bouncing ideas off of each other. What does it look like? I mean, how much of it is about plot, about character, about vibe? Like, what are you talking about?
This is what I will say is, it may not make much sense, but I promise you we've thought about it so much that it actually does. That's all I'll say. If you really start picking it apart, it actually holds together. Whether or not you care to do it is up to you. I often say, come for the story, hang out with the characters. Stay for the characters. No, we read a lot of books about how to write a screenplay. And I tend to be the kindergartner, and my partner tends to be the teacher, and I want to play in the sand and throw shit at the wall, and I'm an actor, so I like to perform for someone. And he's like, okay, Chris, now we're going to actually have to write only 3 pages, and then we have to hit these beats. So we worked very well together in that regard. Once we came up with the structure of it, it was quite fun, because the idea of it for me is I tend to be up in my head a lot of my life, and I really wanted this experience to be as much in my heart as possible. So I just simply followed what I think delight is I use that word specifically because this film is not a lull movie. It's not really a comedy. It reminds me of like a vibey 70s creature. It's like you just exist with the characters and you go on their ride, and it goes sad, and then it goes happy, and then it goes ludicrous, and then it goes existential, and it just kind of is all of these things at once. And I wanted it to be all of that at once because I find life to be that way. I find life to be absurd, tragic, and funny, all kind of in the same continuous line.
When it came down to like writing these specific characters, did you have models in mind? Like, is there a Darren in your real life that you modeled this after in any way, or are there aspects? Again, you say there's aspects of you in there, but like, who are you thinking about?
Well, the conversation about there are many points in this when people told me, like, you can't have a conversation with three people talking about steak and chicken. You can't do it. And I was like, I just kind of want to do it. I just think that was a conversation I had with my father over quarantine, where he was trying to tell me the story for about an hour about how this Japanese restaurant gave him the parts to make the meal. It was just dumb, and I loved it. And that's based off of my mother and my English teacher in high school. And Darren, I don't know, Darren came out of a part of me that still feels quite awkward. I feel like the smooth social person that I can present is this quality that I got from, I don't know, my mother or something, but really deep down I'm much more of Darren. And I was watching a lot of Dating on the Spectrum, and I was like, oh my God, wow. Like, maybe I'm like self-diagnosing myself. Because that, the scene with Darren and June at dinner, noir speak is all about nuance and subtext. And I loved the idea of having a scene with deep subtext with an absolute literalist. It's like he's having a completely different experience of that moment than she is. She's in a movie. She's looking for her, whomever, her Cary Grant, and he's just not capable of doing it. So that really appealed to me. Anyway.
How invested are you in local politics? Have you shown up at city council meetings?
I couldn't care less, honestly. I mean, politics, like, someone shouted at me over there. They're like, you should say something in Palestine. I'm like, me? Like, I'm an actor. Like, I try to make this so people can feel less sad about everything else, I'm much more of an LA preservationist lover. So like all these little itty bitty things in the film about, I like the red car. The red car was this beautiful thing that LA had back in the day before, and that's why I mentioned Who Framed Roger Rabbit, because that was essentially my historical understanding of what happened in Los Angeles, is that Goodyear and Firestone came in, they kicked out all, just watch the film. And a beautiful animated woman will tell you all about it. And the Garden of Allah was a beautiful, that's a little bit in the film, was a beautiful hotel on Crescent Heights and Sunset torn down for a parking lot. Hanna-Barbera, an incredible animator, had a place on Cahuenga. They tore it down and made these fucking lofts that look awful. So I'm a lover of the romantic LA that could have been, and the parts of LA that still exist that are romantic to me. But politics is a way, I mean, I don't know.
You shoot this in 21 days.
21 days, yeah.
You shot this on film.
On film, yeah.
Large cast.
Yes.
A lot to get through. First directing effort. Yeah. What's wrong with you, man? You made it hard on yourself. You could have gone easier on yourself.
Trust me, I was told that a lot of times. In fact, this movie was a much different beast before I was told I couldn't make a $30 million non-genre whatever film. There were animated sequences, there were dance sequences, music video parts, there was origami animation, there was all sorts of shit in here. So I made the closest version of that I could get for $7.5 million, and I almost lost the film basically because I only wanted to shoot on film. That was my make or break. I'm a lover of, and I can't tell you anything about the science behind it, but there's something that, firstly, when you're shooting on film with a team, I visually like a magazine of film on a camera. It makes me feel like I'm doing something legitimate. If I see something shot on a digital camera, it makes me feel bad about it. It just doesn't feel good. And I don't like people saying, oh, don't worry about it, we'll just run it. It's like, fuck you, man. No. I like that kind of like we only have 10 minutes and we have 3 feet left, and like I just like that. I find the difficulty makes the craftsmanship better. I could be wrong. We use these beautiful Baltar lenses from the early 70s that Gordon Willis shot Godfather on, and they have nuance and weirdness to them, and they're not perfect. And I don't like hyper clarity. I don't like seeing movies where it's like you're just being assaulted by everything. Explosion, New York's blowing up again, and I can see everything. And I like murky and wanting to fall into the screen, wanting to like grab moments. And so that's, the choice of noir was also kind of one of just a visual thing. Like I wanted to shoot blacks where they look black, like you could only see an eye. And I wanted to shoot LA daytime in a way that I feel is sexy and I don't know, romantic, I guess is the word.
Also, one of the smartest things any filmmaker can do, let alone a first-time filmmaker, is surround themselves with amazing talent. I mean, the cast you've assembled here is crazy. In a career of highs, of many highs, like where does it stand when like you hear, oh, Annette Bening's in, Danny DeVito's in?
It's ridiculous, quite honestly. It's again, we had 21 days, we had no money, no one's getting paid. You have to move with a kind of alacrity that you don't have to do really with a big budget film. So the gamesmanship of people, they're wanting to come and play, It brings out a playful spirit, I find, that is that the stilt-defying atmosphere of a long, protracted, money-rich shooting experience doesn't have. This is like a gang. This is like a troupe of circus performers that are just willing to try. They're into it. So, and that feeds into the vibe of the set, and that makes people want to show up. And that's great.
It also seems like a very purposeful decision to, like, we don't know when this is set. And it feels like that's going to give this a timeless quality that's going to play hopefully just as well for folks 20 years from now as it does today. Was that something part and parcel, like early on? I know you're not the biggest guy on technology,
right.
That it was important to you to kind of like go analog a bit on this.
It's much time has passed. So I don't really know the thinking about it other than I don't find, I like typewriters. I like payphones. I like pens. I like newspapers. So there's a personal attachment I have to it. But I also see this film very much in this meta aspect of like, it's as if Darren made this film. There's like a DIY aspect to it that's like, this is his dream of being the star of his own film. It's characterized very much by like, is Wayne actually an FBI agent? I don't really think so. I think in that moment, Darren wanted to have his best friend, who's maybe homeless, be an FBI agent and be the star for the moment, because he's not a star. He's a weirdo. He's like a total fucking weirdo. And so it's vaguely like 1988, which, when I was 8 years old, I think it just left an impression of what the big, wide, beautiful world was. And I think that is the way that Darren is seeing his experience and the way that he wanted to communicate his experience. But I would also be lying to say that, it was just a personal thing of that's what I wanted to see. That's what I find attractive.
I mean, we talked a bit about the cast. I don't want to gloss over the fact that your dad is in this movie.
The voice of the lizard, indeed, yeah.
Yeah. That a no-brainer? He didn't have to audition. That's like, this is meant for Dad, obviously.
I don't know. It just seemed like the right move. I'm sure, psychoanalytically. I was going to have my mom actually do the voice of the woman at the end who says, "I'm sorry," who, if you didn't catch it, is the mother that abandoned me. It was going to be all very kind of Freudian, and then I decided maybe best not to do that, but let's keep Dad as the lizard.
Let's talk important stuff. Wardrobe. Where does Darren's wardrobe end and Chris's begin? Are you basically pulling from
it's
your
all
own
just
wardrobe?
in a flow state, basically. I mean, the blue shorts I have in there are mine. This isn't mine, but it should be. No, the red swim trunks are mine. I have the original pair framed in my house. I wore them in my 30s when I was doing a lot of drugs. I was in Joshua Tree and I was waiting in line for coffee and I saw this guy who's obviously a rock climber and it very specifically of a vibe of like the dirtbag hippie rock climber from the 70s, and he was wearing these short shorts with this ripped tee and these fucking weird hiking boots, and I was like, that's the guy. And that framed everything and spoke to this whole weird backstory that I had written for Darren that made a lot of sense to me. And I really got into the wardrobe. Diane's wardrobe is modeled after my high school English teacher, who always wore these kind of flowy linen things and had these bangle jangles on her wrists. And and then Jack is wearing a Victorville Film Festival, which doesn't exist, but my father in the 80s was doing a lot of weird work to try to make extra money up in Victorville, which is this desert town in Los Angeles. Yeah.
How much, I mean, like in this, even I've seen in the publicity campaign and the premiere and stuff, like it feels like you're kind of semi sort of in character a little bit to a degree, promos,
I mean,
et
honestly,
cetera.
dude, it's because I have no money to promote this fucking film.
Well, is it the,
No, straight up. Like, I feel like I'm like this one-man band, basically. Like, if I don't show up to do this fucking thing,
these are the guerrilla marketers
this
for you
film
today.
will land on like some VOD off in the Philippines and never be seen again. So I'm like, I'm not gonna show up to the premiere of my film like doing the shit I usually do in these red carpet things where you're like, whatever. I'm like, I'm gonna have a fucking party, man. Firstly, we premiered at the Vista, which is Quentin's theater in Los Angeles, which he just redid, which is fucking spectacular. We have these beautiful old movie palaces in Los Angeles that are, you know, most of them we've left to rot because we suck, but Quentin bought it's just fucking beautiful, and it's the place that I've seen films for 20, 25 years, so I remember going to sound check and I was fucking weeping. Ian could tell you, I was just weeping because it's like, I'm a boy's dream. I have my film on the screen of the place I wanted to come to, and I was like, and I was doing, you know, you have stylists and stuff that are usually, wear this suit, wear that suit. Usually I'm fucking into it. I love clothes, but this, I was like, no, man, this is my party, and I'm gonna come and, you know, show up in a weird van, and, you know, if no one's into it, fuck them. I don't know. I'll have a good time.
As it started to be screened for real folks like these, like has there been a response that's touched you? That's really made you think, oh, this is what I was going for. This person got it.
We have, we call them front row Joes, because I screened an early version of this, which was far more difficult to understand in Sherman Oaks, and people hated it, just like absolutely hated it. If you ever want to really get a taste of humility, you sit in one of those. And so afterwards, and you know, people are saying what they like about the film, and everybody fucking leaves. They're grumbling, they hate it, and then they have this little group of, I don't know, maybe 15 call it up front, and they have the questionnaires, and they're asking people these questions, and no one fucking liked the film, but there was one guy, Joe, and we called him Front Row Joe because he was sitting in the front row. And man, this guy got it. He was like, yeah, of course, man. It's like this and like that. And what, I don't understand. It's like that and like this. Come on. So ever since then, we're like, where are our Front Row Joes? We're looking for our Front Row Joes. And we have this one woman who's seen the film like 3 or 4 times. And the experiment I was going for, I watched Being There. And I think Peter Sellers is one of my heroes. And at the end, as he's walking on water, I started crying, and I was like, how did Ashby do this? How did this movie all of a sudden become so emotional? I was like, I want to try that trick. Like, can I somehow trick people into thinking it's this one thing, and then all of a sudden bottom it out with this, like, oh my God, this man has just had this really deep emotional reaction. And I don't think I totally hit out of the park, but this one woman really got it, and it really touched her. And that meant, I mean, it means the world to me that I can talk to someone who, like, reflects back exactly what I was going for. Like, is essentially bringing back my own experience, really, because I don't want to get too into it, but that experience of coming to terms with your parents, right? Like, that was Darren's moment of understanding, I mean, individuating, basically. He becomes whole in that moment. And instead of being a weepy crybaby, he cries, but he smiles in joy because it's like, I I can move on now. And I, as a man, a boy becoming a man, I feel like that's a part of the human journey that is so necessary, where you can finally be free of all the epigenetic bullshit and finally just be you, and in that moment be ready to love. And she said that in not so many words to me, and to have that reflected back was maybe the most meaningful thing in my life.
Not to mention, I don't know if you guys have turned on your TVs lately. The world is a shit show, so we could use more. We could use more Poolman movies that can spawn a little joy in our lives.
100%, 100%.
Well, these couple hundred folks are going to spread the good word. The movie comes out next week. You guys are wise for getting in on this early. Spread the good word of this movie and give it up one more time for Mr.
Thanks,
Chris Pine,
everyone.
everybody.
Thank you. Thanks so much.